Hello, everyone. I'm back again with the last part of combining algebraic fractions. And this part is part 3. ومش هتصدقوا ان انا بقول لكم انا part 3 ده بعيده تاني علشان في رقم حسبته غلط. Okay, anyways. So part 3 is the last part of combining algebraic fractions. And in this part, we are going to discuss how to multiply and divide algebraic fractions. The total number of questions we're going to do in this video are 2 questions. But I just need to remind you first with the algebraic concept that says if I have items multiplied up and items multiplied down, for example, لو أنا مثلا هنا عندي 2x, what I can do is that I can cancel out any common items. يعني I can remove these 2 brackets together because they're exactly the same. I can remove the x with the x, and then what remains is x plus 3 over 2. And this is an important part that I need you to remember before we start with the question. اللي هو if you have my items up and items down, and all of these items are multiplied, you can cancel out. And again, I just want to remind you with the fact that if you have such a question, مثلا written, okay, بالشكل ده, you can combine this into one fraction by simply writing the numerators multiplied together and the denominators multiplied together بالشكل ده. بس دي حاجات بس محتاجة ان انتوا تبقوا عارفينها قبل ما ندخل في المسائل. Now, the first question that we're going to discuss today is one more thing that I want you to remember, of course, is the order of operation, which is BIDMAS. طبعا B stands for brackets, indices, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction from left to right. Here we start by the اللي يعني دي إيد على فكرة اللي هي عاملة باي كده لفوق. This is the strongest operation and then the weakest. So if you have such a question, 2 plus 3 times 4, meaning that you have to start with the multiplication مثلا first. And لو مثلا هي مكتوبة كده 2 plus 3 minus 4, and then you have a bracket over here, means you have to start with the bracket. So this is just a very small introduction, and I'm sure that most of you actually know this information. Now, if you're using my resources, this is classified part 1, and this is actually page number 31. Classified part 1, page number 31. We are going to discuss in this question over here how to, as you can see, multiply algebraic fractions. I'm just going to erase this part. تمام. Are going to erase this part over here so that I have the whole page to myself. So please pay attention. Now, if you look at this question over here, it says express as a single fraction in its simplest form. Now, first, let's just identify the operations that I have over here. I have multiplication, I have subtraction, and I have the brackets. So, of course, according to the order of operation, I must start with the brackets first. I must start with the brackets first. But let's just assume يعني هنفترض مجرد افتراض بس إنه ده ما هوش موجود. يعني let's assume that this does not exist, this bracket. Then what do I start with? صح, I have to start with the multiplication. So I'm going to start with this part over here, pretending إن ده مش موجود خالص, as if this doesn't exist. I work on the multiplication first, and then I continue from there. بس طبعا هنا, this is not the case. So as we said, I am going to start with my multiplication, and this is going to be considered as stage number 1 من الحل بتاعي. طب يا miss, what will I do with the remaining of the question? Pretend it's not there. كأن ده كله مش موجود خلاص. As if this doesn't exist. And let's work on this part over here. I'm going to copy it and paste it. وهاخد بالي بس عشان والنبي ما اعملش رقم غلط زي ما عملت في الفيديو اللي فات. So this is the first fraction اهو, minus this is the second fraction. طبعا, as discussed in part 1 of simplifying algebraic fractions by addition and subtraction, always put brackets to avoid silly mistakes. And if you remember, as discussed in part 1, that in these sort of questions, all I need to do to have the same denominator is multiply the denominators as they are totally different. So fraction number 1 will be multiplied by 2x minus 5 up and down. Fraction number 2 will be multiplied by x minus 3 up and down, ending up with two new fractions with two new denominators. Let's just write the denominators over here. اللي هم عندي x minus 3 وهنا 2x minus 5 وهنا x minus 3 وهنا عندي 2x minus 5. And طبعا if you remember, all now we expand up. So 2 times 2x is 4x. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 3 is a negative 9. Reaching to the final answer. Now, if you remember, we said when you're dealing with subtraction questions, either put brackets هنا and apply حاجة minus حاجات and combine immediately, reaching to the simplest form. 4x minus 3x is 1x. وبعد كده عندنا negative 10 minus negative 9 is negative 1. And of course, the denominator remains the same, untouched, which is x minus 3 to x minus 5. وطبعا هنا, if you remember, قلنا when we reach to the stage, you need to ask yourself if you can factorize up and down. You'll find that here you cannot factorize up and down. So there goes your final answer. Or let's just remember that if you are dealing with subtraction, you can change it into addition and reverse the signs. I would change the signs. And then combine 4x plus negative 3x is 1x, negative 10 plus 9 is negative 1. So this is stage number 1, and let me use a highlighter that the answer of this part over here is this. This is the first stage of your question. Now I will move on to the part in which I ignored, اللي هو this part over here, and I have to work on it. ده كده. This fraction over here. And I'm actually going to consider this at stage 2. Stage number 2. طبعا انتوا you can combine the steps together. أنا بس عشان بشرح فبشرح بالتفاصيل. So stage number 2 is working on the first fraction, which is 4x power 2 minus 25 over 5x squared plus 2x minus 7. Let me just make sure the numbers are written correctly. 4x power 2 minus 25 over 5x power 2 plus 2x minus 7. Now, by looking at this fraction over here and asking yourselves, what can I do? You will find that this fraction can be factorized up and down. And again, as I said in my previous videos, if you have an issue with factorization, then you will struggle in this topic over here. So please, you can always refer to my video, which is factorization part 1. Okay, so how do I factorize dots? Square root from left to right. So 4x squared will be factorized into 2x and 2x. 25 is 5 and 5, 1 positive and 1 negative. And as for the denominator, my denominator is factorized using the calculator mod 53. A is 5. هي 2x ولا 12x عشان بس والنبي 2x صح. So 5 equals 2 equals negative 7. So the first bracket is x minus 1, and the second bracket is 5x plus 7. تمام? And here goes your factorization. Let me just make sure that this is correct. دي هنا negative 7, هنا negative 5 و7 plus 2 صح كده. Now, after I have factorized, you need to ask yourself if you can actually cancel out any common items at this stage. You will find that there is nothing to be canceled. So this is the answer of the first part. This is the answer of the first part. طيب, the last stage is the final answer, which is stage number 3. Stage number 3 is mix and match. And what do I mean by mix and match? يعني I will remove the green, put its answer أهو اللي هي 2x plus 5 وعندي هنا 2x minus 5 و in the denominator x minus 1 or 5x plus 7, and then remove the yellow, put its answer. تمام. اللي هي هنا عندي x minus 1, and my denominator which is x minus 3 و 2x minus 5. طيب, what is the operation in between? Let's see. The operation in between هي بس مستخبية. The operation in between is multiplication أهي. لأن in this question we are discussing how to multiply. فأنا هنا I keep it as is multiplication. طبعا put brackets to avoid silly mistakes. Now, this step that I'm going to write is not important. I'm just going to write it and erase it again. إنه all these two, they can be combined into one fraction, by the way, with 3 brackets up and 4 brackets down. يعني if we wish to do it this way. إنه you can combine all of these in one fraction as follows. تمام؟ أو actually كمان أنا ممكن أعمل حاجة لطيفة جدا. يعني أنا ممكن أشيل التايمز دي كده وأقوم مطولة ده كده وأعمل هنا تايمز وأنا هنا تايمز. Bottom line is, when you are multiplying 2 fractions, means that all of the items up, let me have to write it down, مش مشكلة. All of the items up are multiplied, and you can actually write them, you can write them next to each other. All of the items down are multiplied. Now again, this is an extra step that you don't have to write. تمام. وهنا عندي x minus 3 و 2x minus 5. دي extra. قلنا ملهاش لازمة. الفكرة بقى كلها هنا ايه؟ انه اي حاجة فوق في زيها تحت I can cancel. اي حاجة فوق في زيها تحت I can cancel. Any common bracket up and down I can cancel together. Any common bracket up and down I can cancel together, reaching out to the final answer, which is the bracket that remains up, which is 2x plus 5, the 2 brackets that remain down, which is x minus 3 and 5x plus 7. x minus 3 and 5x plus 7. تمام كده؟ يبقى احنا كل اللي احنا عملناه دلوقتي ان انا شلت كل حاجة وحطيتها مكانها. اوكي؟ تأكد بس ان انا كاتبه الارقام صح. طبعا هنا زي ما اتفقنا any item up في شبهه تحت بكتبهم. هنا بقى خلاص, this is your final answer. Now, if you wish to expand down, this is another case, although I don't think you should do it. مش وقته يعني خالص. Now, this is a question about multiplication, and as you can see, it's not difficult at all. Moving to the last question of the day, I'm just going back to classified, close this, and move on to the past papers. So if you have your past papers with you, you can open to هي فين ال past papers أصلا? Wait, just hold on. أهي OL past papers. You can open 2H, Jan 2020, 2H, question number 24. Jan 2020, 2H, question number 24. تمام? I'm just going to share the screen in a bit. أو بس بمسح الجريمة اللي أنا كنت عملتها من شوية. زي ما بقول لكم أنا بعيد الفيديو ده كله من الأول علشان وأنا بحل السؤال ده كتبت رقم غلط أو actually حسبت حسبة غلط. ف I had to repeat the whole thing again, but it's okay. تمام؟ ف let me just share the screen. أهو. Let me share the screen over here. And let's discuss this question together. As we said again, this is Jan 2020. Jan 2020, 2H. Okay, I'm back. Actually, السؤال ده منحوس بجد لأنه أصلا البتاع مش عايزة تفتح ومش عايزة تلود فأنا هقفله بقى خالص and I'm going to move on to the whiteboard. يعني something is really wrong with this question. يعني سؤال منحوس قوي فأنا قررت إن أنا أشتغل هنا على ال whiteboard. Okay, so as you can see, this is Jan 2020, 2H, question number 24. And actually, there is a bracket over here. Jan 2020, 2H, question number 24. And here goes your question. These fractions are given, and you are required to simplify and write in its simplest form. Now, first, as we said, let's identify the operations that we have over here. Now, we have the subtraction, we have the division, and then we have brackets. Now, according, as we said, to the order of operation, then I must start with the brackets first, ignoring everything else. But as I said in the previous question, what if there was no brackets؟ يعني what if ما كانش فيه brackets؟ فساعتها بقى كنت هشتغل ازاي؟ كنت I have to start by the division first. تمام؟ فاخد بالي يا جماعه من الحته دي، انه لو ما كانش الاكزامينر حاطط لي براكتس كان هيبقى ايه الوضع. بس طبعا هو هنا the good thing ان هو حاطط لي براكتس علشان يقول لي لا I want you to start with the subtraction first. So stage number 1 here is going to be working on the brackets, working on these. And طبعا what will I do with this fraction over here? I would just ignore it for now and work on the subtraction first. طبعا we already يا جماعة discussed so many times how to find the same denominator, and you can actually check it out in the video. تمام؟ اللي هو part number 1. How do I find the same denominator? So stage number 1 is going to be the same denominator. So I'm going to rewrite my fractions over here. تمام؟ 3 over 2x minus 3. اهو ده اللي هو الجزء ده اللي انا هبتدي اشتغل بيه. Put brackets to avoid silly mistakes. And طبعا هنا I will do the same denominator process as discussed in the first part of the video. طبعا هنا the denominators are totally different. So what I can do is that I can easily multiply by the denominator. يعني multiply the denominators بقى على طول. فالفراكشن الأولاني will be multiplied by 2x minus 3 up and down. والفراكشن الثاني will be multiplied by 2x minus 5 up and down. طبعا reaching to two new fractions with two new denominators, two new fractions with two new denominators, which are 2x minus 3 وهنا عندي 2x minus 5 وهنا نفس الكلام 2x minus 3 و 2x minus 5. طبعا multiply out 4 times 2x is 8x, 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. دي بقى أنا عملتها في الفيديو اللي فات 16. And then هنا multiply out 3 times 2x is 6x, and then 3 times negative 5 which is negative 15. وطبعا هنا هنوصل بقى للفاينل answer. طبعا if you remember بقى we discussed it several times اللي هو حاجة minus حاجات I can combine immediately. 8x minus 6x is 2x, and then negative 12 minus negative 15, negative 12 minus negative 15 is positive 3 over my brackets. And this is the first stage, which is working on these fractions separately اللي هما ال subtracted. طبعا هنا if you remember قلنا you can change to addition and then change these signs and then combine. 8x plus negative 6 is 2, negative 12 and 15 is كذا. So this over here, I'm going to use a yellow highlighter. This over here is the answer of the first part. يبقى ده هي دي الإجابة بتاعته. ده هي دي الإجابة بتاعته. Now, this question is about division. And let me remind you with the steps of division اللي انتوا أكيد واخدينها من زمان قوي اللي هي keep, change, flip. Let me just remind you with the very, very basic question. لو أنا عندي 2 over 3 divided by 7 over 9. Do you remember how did we solve these sort of questions في ابتدائي؟ كنا بنخلي الفراكشن الأولاني زي ما هو اللي هي keep. Change يعني division تقلب multiplication. Flip يعني ده بشقلبه. So 7 over 9 changes into what? 9 over 7. And then I multiply up and I multiply down. Now, as I always say, what applies on numbers applies on algebra. فطبعا since this question is division, فأنا I'm going to use the keep, change, flip concept. I'm going to use the keep, change, flip concept. طيب, how will I use بقى the keep, change, flip concept? Now, as we can see, we already did the highlighted part. دي بقى أنا أقدر أعمل فيها إيه؟ دي, according to what we just said over here, I can, أو actually, you know what? خلينا نعملها بطريقة منجزة شوية. خلينا شوية دلوقتي, let's just ignore the sign. Let's ignore this part over here and let's focus on this fraction now. Let's focus on this fraction. And let me use a highlighter برضو هنا. Let's focus on the highlighted blue. Now, and ignore the division for now. إيه اللي أنا أقدر أعمله ده في highlighted blue ده? What can I do in this highlighted blue? حلوة دي. What can I do in this highlighted blue? I can, برافو عليكم, I can factorize up and down. أنا highlighted blue ده أنا أقدر أعمل له factorization. طيب, let's look at the numerator and the denominator. طبعا ال denominator can be easily factorized using the calculator. The denominator can be easily factorized using the denominator. The denominator can be easily factorized using the calculator اللي هي mod 53. فهيبقى A ب 6 B negative 17 C 5. So you end up with two brackets اللي هما 2x minus 5, and the second bracket is going to be 3x minus 1. Yeah, by looking at the denominator, you will find that the denominator can be factorized using the calculator. طيب بالنسبة بقى يا حلوين لده للنيومينيتور بتاعي. بالنسبة للنيومينيتور تعالوا ناخده كده في سلايد لوحده. تمام؟ اللي هو 9x minus 4x to the power of 3. Now, if we remember when we discussed factorization, قلنا first you need to ask yourself whether I can take HCF. Then you need to ask yourself if it's dots, and then you ask if it's trinomial. طبعا, if you remember, we discussed the double factorization questions. We discussed the double factorization questions in which you can factorize twice, which is the case هنا. فأنا هنا, the first step in my factorization, as we always said, is the highest common factor. فأنا هنا, I can take x common, and what remains is 9 minus 4x power 2. ان احنا already كلنا خلاص عارفين ازاي نعمل highest common factor. وبعد كده بقى ابص على ده. I check out this bracket. This bracket, can I factorize this bracket? Yes, of course. لأنه this bracket by itself is difference of two squares. فالبراكت ده شخصيا أنا أقدر أعمل له factorization into طبعا square root the first, square root the second. تمام كده, وواحدة plus وواحدة إيه? Minus. So the factorization of the blue is 3 items, as you can see. First, the highest common factor, and then the two brackets, which is the result of dots. عشان كده أنا قلت إيه؟ خلينا نعملها في slide لوحدها. Going back بقى هنا to the question, as we said, this is a double factorization question. First, I took h as common, and what remains is what remains is 9 minus 4x squared, and then this bracket by itself was factorized again into two brackets, 3 minus 2x with 3a plus 2x. فأنا هنا بس هكتب بقى الفactorization بتاعي بشياكة اللي هو x, which is the highest common factor, and then both my brackets اللي هم 3 plus 2x و 3 minus 2x. أهو. يبقى let's use بقى the same highlighter اللي هو ده highlighted blue. highlighted blue ده factorization بتاعي. هاخده بقى أحطه فين؟ هاخده أحطه هنا. بس خلينا بقى ناخد بالنا من حاجة الأول. دلوقتي بقى نرجع للأوبريشن دي اللي هي division اللي أنا I ignored it. قلنا keep, change, flip. يعني the first will be kept as it is. Change يعني division will change into multiplication. Flip يعني هشقلب بقى, هطلع ده فوق وانزل ده تحت. يعني هطلع ده فوق وايه وهنزل ده تحت. ما انا already عملت factorization, so I will flip it بقى. خلاص تمام. او خليني اعملها step by step. يعني ممكن افليب ده, خلاص هيبقى 6x power 2 minus 17x plus 5 وتحت 9x minus 4x power 3, and then I remove it and I put its factorization. Okay, يبقى keep, change وده flip. أو خلاص بقى هنفاكتورايز up وهنفاكتورايز down. هنشقلب بقى هنا خلاص. فدي هتبقى هنا عندي 2x minus 5 و 3x minus 1 وتحت هتبقى الx و 3 plus 2x وهنا عندي ايه 3 minus 2x. ودلوقتي بقى خلاص so this is stage 2. stage 2 اللي هي keep change flip. اوكي طبعا خلاص بقى stage number 3 is the final answer اللي هي canceling out. This is stage 3 اللي هي الفاينل answer اللي هي canceling out اي حاجه فوق في زيها تحت. فعندنا هنا 2x plus 3 ده موجود هنا زيه up and down وعندنا هنا 2x minus 5 ده موجود زيه up and down. So what remains up is 3x minus down and what remains down is الx والبراكت اللي جنبها ده اللي هو 3 minus 2x والبراكت اللي هنا ده اللي هو 2x minus 3 اللي هو 2x minus 3. So let's summarize again what we did in this question over here. Let's summarize again what we did in this question over here. أول حاجة يا جماعة عملتها إن أنا I watched out for the order of operation. So I started off with the subtraction. And when we started off with the subtraction, what we simply did is that we did the same denominator step, which was stage number 1. And the answer of the same denominator step was this. دي كده خلاص خلصناها. وبعد كده دخلنا على الفراكشن اللي بعد الديفيجن. لقينا انه الفراكشن اللي بعد الديفيجن ده مليان شغل. عملنا فيه ايه؟ عملنا له فاكتورايزيشن هنا في الستep دي. يبقى احنا دلوقتي اشتغلنا على البارت الاولاني ده وخلصناه وبعد كده هنشتغل على الفراكشن ده ونخلصه. I have factorized this part over here. فده الفاكتورايزيشن بتاعه using بقى الدوتس والاتش سي اف ومش عارفه ايه والكلام ده كله بتاعه. اوكي يبقى هنا عملت same denominator وهنا عملت factorization. وبعد كده بقى ايه حطيت كل حاجه في مكانها. يعني ايه حطيت كل حاجه في مكانها؟ يعني حطيت الانسر بتاع دي هنا وحطيت الفاكتورايزيشن هنا بس اخدت بالي انه دي مساله division. فكل اللي انا عملته انه الديفيجن ده I changed it into multiplication. الديفيجن I changed into multiplication وشقلبت ده I flipped this اللي هو keep change شقلبتها. فقمت مطلعه ده فوق البراكت دول فوق ونزلت دول تحت زي ما عملت هنا في الستيب اللي هي دي keep change flip. وبعد كده بقى كل اللي انا بقى عملته خلاص انه بصينا بقى شفنا do I have any item up and down common. لقيت yes in 2x plus 3 زيها هنا اهو although it's written بarrangement مختلفة. 2x minus 5 لقيت زيها تحت واي حاجة اتبقت عندي فوق كتبتها. يعني 3x minus 1 remained up فقمت كاتباها. These remained down فقمت كاتباها. بس طبعا when I wrote them دايما كتبت الأكس الأول وبعد كده كتبت بقية items. Now I hope that these videos were useful to you. طبعا you will find إنه during the past papers or during office hours we are going to practice more on simplifying algebraic fractions, whether they're added, subtracted, multiplied, and divided. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you in the next videos. Bye.